Is Nico Iamaleava the problem? Today's tough question. It's our poll question as well to get us rolling. And we want to hear from you in the comment section. As I even heard one caller on Sunday Sports Sound Off with Jimmy Himes question whether or not they should bench Nico Iamaleava. That's absurd because they don't have another direction to go with Gaston Moore and then Merklinger, who doesn't have the experience. And I still think Nico's going to be a special quarterback. But Caleb, let me get your take. Is Nico the problem? Was Nico the problem Saturday night against Arkansas as Tennessee's offense struggled?
Yes, Nico was absolutely the problem. Let me rephrase. He was a problem. I do want to point out that Nico Iamaleava wasn't the only problem in that game, but he was part of the problem in the passing game. He held the ball too long. He was too late, and I don't know if you went back and rewatched some of the highlights, Dave, but he was very clearly too late in noticing when receivers broke on their routes. And he also, when he did scramble, a lot of times he didn't notice open receivers. And I'm not even going into the final drive where he choked. He got nervous. He had, literally Eminem style, palms were sweaty because he literally fumbled a snap that was a perfect snap by Cooper Mays. And then obviously the final play, you can sit there and say all day the ball kind of slipped when he was getting ready to throw. That's still an indictment against him because that still showed he was a little bit nervous. And I broke down the highlight reel on that final play and I looked at it, Dave. And again, it was indicative of what was wrong the whole game, which is one, the tackles absolutely blew their assignments, which forced Nico Iamaleava out. If Nico Iamaleava could have stayed in the pocket, there was going to be a receiver open in the end zone on the deep shot, but he had to roll out because Campbell and Hurd played as garbage on that play as they had all night. But then when he rolls out, he's got to throw across he's got a perfect wide open throw. I think it's Chris Brazzell across his body if he makes that throw, and he can make that throw, but he doesn't see it, and then he panics and he runs. So to me, he's a problem because I think mentally he's nervous. I think he's not. I have to say it. I think he's very nervous.
Okay. So if you listed Nico on the number of concerns, and I see you, Travis, saying after 5 games, if you were an NFL team, would you draft Pierce in the top 2 rounds? I want to get to that too, but we're focusing on Nico right now. I thought he was talking about Nico. My apologies. But if you had to rank it, offensive tackle, coaching, Nico, would those be the top 3 problems? Can we agree on that?
Yeah, and we'll get to our blame pie a little bit later in the game, but those were clear-cut the top 3. And one of the things we didn't even get to with coaching, Dave, and I didn't even think about this because we talked about it on Saturday night. We talked about the clock mismanagement and things like that, but we'll save it because there was another problem with the clock mismanagement that Josh Heupel did that I'll talk about in my blame pie and my report card. But it was just awful. But yes. As far as Nico himself goes, a lot of this is on him. Look, you can blame John Campbell and Lance Hurd all day, and we will. And they were horrible. And they need to take long showers and maybe give some NIL money back after that performance. But at the same time, Nico's like we keep talking about, he's your $2 million man per year. And that's just the minimum. He's probably making more than that. And the truth of the matter is, Dave, when you pay a player that type of money, it's just like the NFL, isn't it? You expect them to overcome deficiencies elsewhere. I don't care if they're a redshirt freshman. No one's going to look at it's the argument with the Aaron Rodgers in the NFL when he was always making $50 million a year. And no one's going to sit there and say, well, he doesn't have any receivers to throw to. They're going to say he doesn't have any receivers to throw to because he's getting all the money. So he's making the case that he's worth not having receivers to throw to. Then he needs to prove it. And Nico kind of needs to prove that he doesn't need the help because he's getting $2 million a year to play at Tennessee.
I'm going to tell you how easily fixable Nico is, okay? Here in just about 30 seconds, Banks and Jones brings you today's tough question, and our poll question is now. It is, do you still have faith in Nico Iamaleava? Yes, he's still young. No, winners don't do that, referring to the end of the drive. And you didn't even mention the bobbled snap that turned into a Dylan Sampson draw play. That was a perfect snap that he clearly didn't catch in a pressure situation. So 78% now say Yes, he's still young. We got a 22% say no. Winners don't do that. So go ahead and get on board now. Click that like and subscribe button if you haven't. I'm going to tell you how to fix Nico in 30 seconds, represented by Banks and Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks and Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Okay, Caleb, let me ask you this question. Nico is the most athletic Tennessee quarterback since. I'm talking consistent starter. Don't give me Brent Schaefer because he wasn't a consistent starter, but he was probably a better athlete than Nico, just raw athletic ability. But the best athlete since, and that'll lead to my thoughts on how to fix Nico like today.
Well, in terms of athlete, he's only the best athlete since Joe Milton last year. I think Joe Milton's more athletic than Nico.
Okay, I would actually argue that because of the lack of lateral and opening the hips. But anyway, I would go back. I'm going to go back to a guy, Heath Shuler. Okay, and maybe there's better athletes in the interim. Caleb, you brought up Joe Milton as just a raw athlete. Yes, he could win.
Hendon Hooker was very athletic too.
Agreed. And Nico didn't look comfortable running the football like he did earlier this season. He looked like I was visiting with John Adams yesterday. He looked like a baby giraffe at times. But I'm going to tell you how to fix him. It's the same way they immediately got Heath Shuler going. And if you remember, Heath Shuler's the offense was pretty simple, especially early in his career. He was such a great athlete that it was back foot. Once you hit, if the guy's open, throw. If not, run. I know that's oversimplifying things, but that's where they need to be right now because they've either put too much on him, and we've got the blame pie coming up. They should have done more of the 12 personnel, which is the 2 tight end set to protect him because he was sacked 4 times. Now, what do you think of that, Caleb, of simplifying the offense, back foot, bam, it hits, you throw or you go? And I had the same idea. I know that Eric Ainge just talked about that on his show, but I really had the same idea. So great minds think alike. Shout out to him. Caleb, what do you think about that idea?
I don't love it. And the reason I don't love it, I'm going to be honest. If this was
be honest. I love it.
If this was Joe Milton, I would agree with you. But like Nico Iamaleava's arm is too special. This is a guy you want to be able to go through all his progressions. I mean, he's way too special of a passer to not want him to stay in the pocket and learn how to move in the pocket to go through his progressions. Because as good of a runner as he is, and he's a solid runner, that arm is just too good. I want to step back. Even though I'm saying he's a problem, I think it's all mental. Dave, when he does choose to throw, and when he's not nervous, he does make throws that nobody else I've ever seen for Tennessee can make. Quite honestly.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. Also, a new poll question up, Caleb. And it's, what do you think of throw and go for Nico? Yes, simplify things. No, his arm is too good. Right at 50-50. We'll update you as we go. So, Caleb, the way that Nico ended the game was Joe Milton-like going back to 2021 against Ole Miss. And I literally have never seen a quarterback jump out of bounds with no time left on the clock in my 25-year career other than twice. And they both happened to Tennessee quarterbacks. At the time, I said that's an indictment of Joe Milton, and he's not going to be able to process things quickly down the line. Is it hypocritical for me to say that I don't believe that's the case with Nico? Now, I went back and did some research. For those that don't know, Tennessee's quarterback, which was Hendon Hooker, and went out of the game, and Joe Milton came in, was also facing a ton of quarterbacks, a ton of pressure. Ole Miss sacked Tennessee's quarterback 5 times, Caleb. So the pressure factor is moot. Also, you could argue Joe Milton came into the game as a backup, so you give him a little bit of the benefit. Am I being a hypocrite saying that when I saw Joe Milton do that, I thought it's over? He's never going to be good. When I see Nico do that on Saturday, for whatever reason, that same thought doesn't go through my mind. And I'm not sure why. I'm asking you, does it go through your mind that Nico might just not be up for the gig?
It absolutely goes through my mind, and I do think it's hypocritical. I think there were things that were working against both of them. And then we're going to talk about how Josh Heupel will distinguish it in our second segment and in our next segment. But sticking on this one for a minute, Joe Milton, he was thrown into the game on the final drive after riding the bench the whole time. Mm-hmm. Even if you want to say he's older and more experienced, that's fine. But he was thrown into the game on the final drive, trying to lead a game-winning drive when he didn't expect to get in there. Nico Iamaleava had been starting the whole game. Josh Heupel let Arkansas score with the plan of trying to get Nico to lead a game-winning drive. Now, Nico's younger. It was on the road. And also, it does sound like Nico was trying to make a play, but then when he tried to throw it, the ball kind of bobbled. I don't know how true that is. That seems like a bit of a cover. We'll get to that. But at the same time, I actually think it might be less excusable for Nico Iamaleava because he had started the whole game. And even if what he's saying is true, what you're saying is true, we're like, oh, you bobbled it, and then you ended up stepping past the line of scrimmage, and it's too late. Well, then try to run for the touchdown, or throw a pass in front of the line of scrimmage, hoping it becomes a touchdown, and then just take the penalty so you live to fight another day. Don't run out of bounds.
Nah, I agree. What do you think of throw and go for Nico? Yes, simplify things. No, his arm is too good, about 60-40 down the line. So we'll continue to take your votes for that. Russ says Joe Milton was a multi-year senior. Nico is a multi-year freshman. He wasn't a multi-year senior in 2021. He would have been a junior, right?
Yeah, he would have been a fourth-year junior.
Okay, with the whole COVID year, it gets messed up. But no, I firmly believe that this is different. And perhaps it's because of other things I've seen by Nico leading into the season. Now, granted, Caleb, those other things I have seen from Nico are against way lesser opponents. So how many laser incredible throws have you seen against quality opponents before we move on? Because there haven't been a lot. The Dante Thornton catch on the final drive was more about Dante Thornton than it was the throw. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. No, I don't think the throw was bad. I thought the timing of when Nico threw it was bad.
It wasn't bad, but it was up for grabs. It was like the Eli Manning catch. I mean, that was more a catch than it was a great throw. Remember David Tyree catching against his helmet and stuff?
Yeah,
I mean, to me, that was a chuck into coverage. Hope something happens.
I totally agree. By the way, so was Jalen Milroe's touchdown pass to Ryan Williams. We don't want to say that, but that was a pass into double coverage that Ryan Williams made the play on. But yes, I agree. That was just a chuck it and see what happens. I haven't seen as many, particularly against good competition, but I have seen Nico make some throws that I just haven't seen other Tennessee quarterbacks make. And maybe we'll get into this, but they're not being aggressive enough with him, maybe.
Mm-hmm. No, I can't argue that.